Hi there, everybody. My name is Dan Clark, and I chose the review gaming platform GIMKIT for my technology spotlight project. The reason I chose this is because I think it's a fun tool that I think would be great for pretty much every grade level. I haven't experimented, but I'm pretty sure I could create one that my kindergarten son could play along with. And this is an interesting tool. As I started to look into the background of this software, I discovered that it has a connection to a class like this. So there was this 16-year-old student named Josh Feinsilber, and basically he ends up, transferring from a traditional public school to a project-based learning school, and they start talking about this idea of, design thinking, I guess is the right way to put it.
The perfect platform to utilize the WebSockets technology that he had been researching. But when you're building a game-based assessment platform, where do you start? Well, while attending Gibson Act, Josh learned all about the process of design thinking, a method of creative problem solving. It's a process that involves developing empathy toward your user base. So it was no surprise that he started with research.
He followed the ADDIE method as well, did some analysis starting out. He interviewed hundreds of teachers, and he designed, developed, implemented, evaluated, and of course, the final version that we have today is not the original version that started out. But over time, this young 16-year-old kid became a successful ed tech pioneer with the creation of GIMKIT. And what GIMKIT is a...
Let's see. So GIMKIT is a live learning game for your classroom. So you essentially make multiple choice questions or use questions made by other teachers. And then what we do is we turn those questions into a bunch of different games.
Like I said before, it's a fun way to review material. It's a fun way to maybe learn new vocabulary, to get an idea of students' background knowledge on an issue or a topic. Its intended audience can be anywhere from elementary to high school students. And the thing that makes it different from the other games is that those other games like Kahoot or Quizlet Live, they depend on speed to gain points, whereas GIMKIT puts strategy into play and just kind of puts more layers into the game. It's not a simple everyone answers at the same time type of game. It's a game where, depending on the game you choose, you're going at your own pace, and you are going through the game based on your own developed strategy for that game. There's quite a few different options to choose from for games. The free versions are just fine if your school can afford it, or if you find yourself using this more often. The premium version is, gives you access to the new ideas that they have, the new games they're releasing, and it makes you a hit with the students. They have definitely talked about, learning the material better when doing GIMKIT. And so, of course, the purpose of this is going to be to review content, to learn new content, to retain vocabulary. You could also use it as a formative assessment tool. And I'm sure, there's going to be things that I'm missing where you could probably use this for. So how is this related to design and education? Well, if I remember back to the Vivian Robinson video about, how you frame what a problem is, and how that looks different to each one of us. In this case, Josh, the guy who created this, his problem was that there wasn't a variety of layered games for teachers to use. And I'm sure that's not a problem that most teachers are thinking of. It's not something that I am worried about on a day-to-day basis about how I can have my students game their way to success. But as she states in her video that, everyone frames it differently, and how there is such a variety of problems to address or problems of practice that not everybody is going to be thinking of the same ones.
People have totally different concepts of what a problem is. And there are some practitioners and academics, I might say, who think that problem solving is a technical, low-level process, and they are very dismissive of it. They want to be, instead of problem solving, they want to be transformational or something that, in their view, has higher status.
If I'm looking at how this creates an equitable or student-centered learning experience, if you can see on the screen here, this person moving through the game is the student, and they aren't relying on anybody else to make their way through this game or to try and win this game, because it's a completely student-centered experience. They don't need to wait for a class to finish answering a question. They can answer questions. They can get them wrong. They can get them right. Doesn't really matter. But they will have the chance to, try to learn the correct answer and try again down the line, instead of, in other games like Kahoot, you get the question wrong, and now you're basically knocked out of the entire competition, because there's going to be 3 kids that, don't get it wrong ever. It's equitable if students have the same access to technology tools in the classroom. I teach in a district that's 1-to-1 with iPads, so definitely equitable. Everyone is able to play this. I've had students play on their phone versus their iPad, but if you are in a district that doesn't have that access to technology, then I guess this just becomes inequitable. So it's very reliant on a 1-to-1 system existing in your class or district. If I'm looking at the 7 principles of design, of course, equitable use being number 1, besides those technological access issues, it definitely keeps everybody in the running to win the game, because you need to develop a strategy along with answering questions correctly. The second principle of flexibility in use, there's a wide variety of games to choose from in GIMKIT, and they can be used on laptop devices, touchscreen devices, mobile devices, like I said previously, if your school is 1-to-1, it makes that flexibility piece a non-issue. Along with those different games as well, different strategies are involved with each different game. So you can see the variety or flexibility there. If you're trying to get certain students in your class to participate more, maybe you could play to something they would be more into, like the Among Us example. The third principle of it being simple and intuitive to use seems to me like a no-brainer. It's very easy to add questions on the teacher end. You can also upload from different sources you may already have in terms of flashcards or vocab words or review questions. From the student end, it's also pretty easy to figure out and develop a strategy as the gameplay unfolds, even if you haven't played it before. In preparation for this, I played around with the Fishtopia game, and I had no idea how to play this at the start. Didn't take me very long to figure out what I needed to do as a fisherman. The principle number 4 of perceptible information. This software and the information you need to navigate this site is very easy to understand and intuitive. There's lots of trial and error opportunities throughout the different games. and those accidents or errors that you make don't radically change the game. So you're free to kind of experiment, which brings us to principle 5 of tolerance for error. Definitely lots of opportunities for error and error correction. As I've said a bunch of times, one answer does not eliminate you from competition, but it may give you the chance to actually learn the material or think a little more critically about that question. Principle 6 being low physical effort. Not much physical effort is needed to touch the screen here and answer these questions or move your characters or tap the buttons. So definitely very accessible because of its low physical effort. All you need is a finger if you're using a touch screen, which most people have in the form of a phone or even just a mouse. Principle 7 is size and space for approach and use. So I would say that the different games offer a variety of different spaces and approaches for use in terms of the student perspective. Students would need decent vision and ability to touch the screen or keypad to complete these games. But overall, I see this review tool as a way to make studying fun. Something I've noticed in the last few years, or maybe over the pandemic, is just the drop-off that has happened in terms of studying for a test. So this would be a way to maybe make that more appealing. Also for vocab practice, and it could be used to offer repetitions after learning something new. And if I'm looking overall at the strengths and weaknesses of this software, it's definitely fun. It's definitely engaging. The variety of games is great. Students almost 100% prefer it to their competitors. It's more efficient than paper and pencil. In my basic research, I found that it improved test scores by 14% when students used GIMKIT. However, some of the limitations are the consumption of time, or the amount of time it takes to actually get through an entire game successfully. Like Fishtopia, for example, would take a good solid hour to get to the end of the game, which also brings up other limitations of question repetitiveness. So if you're looking to get the most out of this software, you would want to create a very in-depth list of questions so that students wouldn't be getting the same questions over and over again, and they're just clicking as fast as they possibly can to get through them to get the points. If you take one question and modify it 4 different ways, that's going to benefit how your students retain the knowledge. So I would say that can be a limitation, but it should also make you want to create a better review that is more in-depth and has a lot more variety in terms of questions. So there you have it. That's GIMKIT. I highly recommend it. Check it out.